feel of Pexels, for example. I go to Pexels website, and what I do is I stumble upon this, beautiful 3 sets of images of different alumni or one of the instructors, and I see a text. I see different colors. I see red. Sorry. I see yellow. I see, the deep blue, and I see what's this one? Pink. Right? So it sets that tone for the brand. It sets that mood for Pexels generally. So now if you now go to, say, for example, you go to a different website entirely where it has nothing to do with Pexels, and you see the same color tone on that website, it gives you, it's like this guy's copied Pexels, right? Because it's identifying with Pexels in this case, right? And that's why it's easy for anybody to spot plagiarism when they see it in design. They say, no, this design is like you copied it somewhere. I know where I saw this the last time. So generally, colors sets the mood for every product, right? And the concept of color should not be overused, because that's what we come, to in design generally, where, you are building a fintech product, and then you certainly just use blue because blue is generally appealing to, what's it called, a business website. No, right? Because there are other colors that can be used. Right, so you just need to be exposed to some of these things. So this first slide is basically talking about the mood, the tone of a brand when you visit the website, when you visit their product. It gives you, set that mood for you before you even get into the messaging and all of that. So now, all right, the next slide basically is giving you like a 3 screens of almost the same industry, right? So this is Go One, which is like an educational website. We have Teachable. Everybody knows Teachable, right? And then we have what's this last one? I'm not sure I know what this last one is. Articulate something. So let me be sure that everybody can hear me. If you can hear me, maybe the host can just give me an identification that everyone can hear me. So the 3 images are for what's it called? The same industry, right? So we have Go One, we have Teachable, and we have Articulate. So can somebody tell me the difference between these 3 websites? They are in the same industry. Don't forget, they are in the same industry, but they have different sets of colors. Can somebody just like turn on their mic and tell me, why would you think that? Because this is a I'm going to like debunk a misconception in the design space now, right? And that's why I want to ask this question. Why do you think that these 3 websites that offers almost the same service offering, right, are using different tone of colors, different messaging style, and different feel and mood? Somebody should just turn their mic and tell me quickly. Or I pick. Oshikalu, is that still you? Okay. Yeah, you can turn on your mic. I think Oshikalu is the only one engaging in this meeting.
Okay, so thank you. The first thing that comes to my mind is the perspective should be general actually, but each designer have their own side as well. So since it's not one same designer operating on the 3 this thing, so each of them have one thing that they feel should be the main thing in their backgrounds or at their work. Okay. So the first thing is designer's background, designer's intuition matters a lot. I think that's just the first thing that comes to my head now on why the 3 might be different.
Yeah, that's
slightly
smart.
Different.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. So now, from what Shikalu has just said, right? So this is from the perspective of a designer, right? But why I like that concept or where you're coming from is, I mean, that also contributes to why it is of different style and feel, right? But if you look at it from the user standpoint, it now gets super interesting, right? So why do you think they use different color, different style? Because they're appealing to different markets, right? So now it's funny, but you understand what I mean. So now when you are choosing a color style, for example, you're choosing a color style for an educational platform, but it's targeted towards a set of age, which is between maybe 25 to 65, for example, right? There is certain colors that appease rather to their mood, appease to their past experiences and all of that, that when they see the color, it connects with them. So I want you to see colors generally as something that is targeted towards a race, a specific, though not for a specific race, but appeals to all that's target audience, but in its same what's it called category. So that's basically it. So when you are choosing a color, you're choosing a color that appeals to certain audience, but the audience might be of different field, age, experiences and all of that. So if you're appealing to a certain age, which is between maybe 40, which I find very most likely impossible to be targeting a user from maybe 35 to 65, right? Because now generally we build products for everyone now these days, right? So, but let's just assume you are building for 25 to 65. The type of color you're using, you're not going to come and use alt colors and start using pop of colors, because then it doesn't appeal to that audience. But if you're using, like, for example, for that age range that I mentioned, you're using, say for example, you're using tone, this green and lemon tone, then it appeals to them generally. You know why? Because there is not too much of that color used, right? So there's just like a single color. There's a very a pastel background that also connects to that single lemon color. And there is this old, what's it called? This aged woman just like taking much of the space on the landing page. And then if you come here, there is no specific, what's it called? This is targeted to probably, let's assume this is an art, what's it called, audience, but it doesn't only speak to art audiences, right? But you see the type of color they use. They pretty much just they went monochrome. And why I think these guys went monochrome is because, for the most part, colors are very dangerous. Now, if you start introducing colors to your brand, then you have to be very careful, because you have to do extensive research to know the type of audience you're working with. If you go to Skillshare, for example, right? If you go to Udemy, for example, this website have been for a long time, even before accessibility became like, a lot of a buzzword now. But these days, people digest information differently, right? If I see a video of 1 minute and I see a video of 10 minutes, I would rather watch the what's it called, the simplified version of that video, which is a minute. You know why? Because we now digest differently. So now you are appealing to certain audience. You need to take into consideration their age, their style, our current realities, because our current reality is actually very terrible. Why? Because people don't consume information because it's so complicated. They consume because it's simple, easy to the eye, and easy to digest. And that's why if you see the similarities between these three headers, it is simple, straightforward, and monochrome. Even when you see colors, it's still monochrome, because they are using a lighter touch of those colors. This, on the other hand, for articulate, they're simply using like a blue tone, which simply stands out from the background and everything you see on that page. So what am I really saying here? Each of these brands are not only targeted because design because the designer says, oh, I love this style of design. Because the designer is not working for this, what's it called, for himself. This designer is working for stakeholders and working for the user. All right, so which is something I want to debunk totally. When you see crypto space, for example, in these days, where you see this beautiful dark tone and all of that, and then everyone is moving in that line of dark tone. Right, it shouldn't be, but people are already creating a feel for how crypto should look, which is poppy colors, dark backgrounds, and all of that, which should not, right? Because the audiences are different, right? So you need to design specific to the type of audience you're working with. And that's like what this is all about the right colors and then the mood of the design. So don't let me bore you with too many informations. So it's important to note that there is no one size fits all for colors, right? You see a lot of Instagram thread where they are really talking about, the 30, 20, 50 rules and all of that. See, trust me, if you're going to design, sometimes you debunk all of these things. You know why? Because you will find yourself not even going through the 30, 20 and then 50 rule, or 60, 10, 30 rule. You know why? Because maybe there's only one primary colors. So how do you split between 30, 10, and 60? So it's not, there's no one size fits all to it. You use what you believe aligns with UX principles. And I'm going to get there like really quick, right? So in choosing the right colors, you need to keep your gaze consistently on well thought out design. So start simple and go crazy when you have to. So now this is getting super interesting, right? Because this is where I just want you to like debunk a lot of information when it comes to design. I will ask you, and I'm going to ask anyone outside, what's it called? Our consistent guest, not guest, one of our visitors for today, which is Oshikalu. I'm just going to point out to somebody else entirely. When you design, when you design, where do you digest ideas from? So this is something that also matters to every designers. It's important to know where to digest information from, where to get certain ideas from, inspirations and all of that. So let me ask, where do you digest ideas from when you have like a design project? And in terms of color, now, this is not text, this is not any other things, colors specifically. How do you get color ideas? If you want me to point, I'm going to point. But if you want to raise up your hand, somebody should just do that. Who is that? All right, Anita. Anita, come in. Is Anita here? I thought I said, okay, David should come in. David should come in.
So I can you hear me?
Oh, okay,
So
I can
I
hear you.
tend to look at so I tend to look at interior design decor
Mm-hmm.
and lots of the colors, and I also look at a little bit of some art and then some fashion websites as well. So when I look at them and the outfits and the rest, I just start to get inspiration.
All right. I like that. So David should come in. David should come in. I want to get different perspective to this. Maybe we're all like aligned. And all right, so David should come in.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Okay. So I get my like when I want to start a project, I get ideas from let's say Dribble or Behan. But at times I don't know. Like I have issues with colors. Though. Like it gives me headache. I was confessed. Sometimes I try a whole lot of things. Most times it works, but it takes me time. Like I have to try this, try that. Like I tried all these rules that they say 30, 20 or whatsoever. At times it doesn't really work, or
Right.
even though it works, it's not really perfect the way I expect it to be. So that's what I have to say.
Right. Okay. Ifeanyi should come in. Ifeanyi should come in. Yadiuku Ifeanyi. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
All
So yeah, when I want to work on a design, it depends on the project I'm working on. So for example, it's like a website, I have to go to Dribble and pick some inspirations. So after I pick some inspirations, before I start my design or before I choose a color I'm going to use, I need to still make a research on the color I'm selecting because normally I have to go to a website to search for colors that I can bring them together, that they won't have to collide or spoil what I'm trying to design. So what I normally do is that I normally go to a website, in particular, a website called Webflow. So I go there and search for colors that can match together because I cannot just go and pick red color and trying to combine red color with another color that for sure they won't match. So I have to go to Webflow, then pick, like I can just search, okay, which colors that can match, or there are which colors that normally relate together. Then a list of different colors will be given to me with their code.
Okay, that's smart. All right. So I mean, from everything you said, right? So I mean, from Anita to David and then to the rest of you, you had mentioned that you go to Dribble. I think Dribble is very consistent from what you guys have said, and how I do not like what's it called, object. I like to like advise not to do that. You know why? Because the first step is not to go to Dribble and then see what pops or connects with what you're building, and then now start putting pieces together just to get it. You need to first understand why colors are important, and then why this color is so important to you. So I am very big on certain colors, right? And that's maybe because of the type of product I build, right? And they are usually in the e-commerce productivity space. And then purple is very prominent, and then dark theme colors are very prominent, and also light colors are prominent. So, but when choosing colors, please, Dribble is usually is not supposed to be your first step or first decision in the first place. And as somebody mentioned Webflow, these websites are generally good, but they are best for design inspirations generally, but not on the specific concept of color, because then you will see a lot of things that appeals to you, and then you just want to pick them. You just want to pick them. You realize that when you try this out, you're not liking what you see, and then you want to try something out. And you're not becoming intentional about design, because the first step is to be intentional first with your decisions, know why you are using certain colors, and so be it. So there's a type of color that appeals to children, there's a color that appeals to certain age range, there's a color that appeals to women, men, you know what I mean, right? So know those colors. So when you see red, what do you see? When people see red, they say danger, and when some people see red, they perceive it as love, right? But if I tell you that love also depicts energy, right? It depicts what's it called? Power. So then if you are building something that relates to, I don't mean power as electricity, I mean power as dominance, right? So you see all of these things, you know why you're using that color. It's very important. But these are my own go-to links when it comes to trying to get inspirations for colors. And you know why? Because these products are existing. Well, somewhat like Webflow, but Webflow doesn't have that compact library. But nicely-done.club is one best place to go, right? So what I'll do is I'll share this link after I'm done with the session, and then you guys can just digest it if you want. So nicely-done.club, but they give you just maybe 2 websites free, and then you have to pay or thereabouts. But I use this very often, right? But Landbook is free. Godly.website is free. Now, Godly.website might be a bit unconventional. You know why? Because these are mostly designs that appeals to the Western world, right? They are minimal, they are very, less chaotic with colors, like when you're designing for a stakeholder in Nigeria, these things, guys. And then you just use like one simple color, and then everything is just white background and stuff. Your CEO will be telling you, okay, are you sure that this thing is going to work, right? I don't see, it's not popping. All right, make it pop. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. So, but Godly, the website, creates that balance between minimalism and sophistication. So you can, also use any of this website for design inspirations. But I mean, we'll all definitely get to the point where you understand why colors are important and how to use them well. So let me run. I think I'm, almost out of time. So we have it here. It says, one way to selecting the right palette is know the market, then use existing tools to speed up the process. And hence, the first link I just shared, knowing the right palette is very important. And then also using existing tools to speed up your process. All right, nicely done. You can even go to Mobins. Mobins now have like a web version of screenshots. Okay, so aside from the mobile, that they use, but I think it's pretty much still in beta. So but yeah, this is an helpful link for for colors. All right, it's totally free. I have like the pack, all right, the paid plan for this, but this particular link will pretty much just take you to, you can just search on the Figma community before like I send this link. You see Untitled UI colors. They have like color libraries and different pastel colors of these libraries, right? So you have different hue, different saturation, different opacity range. It's an amazing tool, trust me. So if you are somebody who like is working with purple, for example, there are different shades of all the purple, and then you can just get on with it. And this is what I'm talking about, not like breaking your head because you want to get the right color. Somebody has done it for you. Just go there, use it, and then modify it to your own realities. I don't know if you understand. So that's like, it's a very amazing tool to use as well. But this is something that I really want to talk about, and then we are going into like some of design nuances now. So accessibility considerations. So accessibility is key and king. When I say key is the door, and then the door to people using your product, right? Color is one of them. But if you go to the WCAG 2.0 or thereabout, you see that there are lots of different kinds of accessibilities, right? But one of them is color. And color merges or morphs with contrast. So contrast is something that you need to pay attention to when using colors. And that's why I suggested this particular tool, which is the Untitled UI colors. They have like those range of colors that can be used, and they also meet accessibility standards, right? So and so this is colors also are ways to also identify a good designer. So if you see a designer and then I don't even look at aesthetics anymore. I don't look at, it's so pretty and all of that. But when I see a color used by this designer and how the color is used, especially pastel with solid colors, I know this person is solid in design, so, but that too will help you. So we don't need to go too much into that. So there's a UX law that we have, which is aesthetic usability effect, right? It simply tells you like people can really forgive a bad design, a bad UX rather, by simply changing the perspective for them with a good design. So, for example, you go to a website and then you want to click the button is so sticky, and then you just find it very hard to use it. But you see a pretty interface. I mean, what the user might just do is refresh. Maybe it's some bug. They refresh and then they come back, it works. But what has sold the idea to them? Pretty interface, pretty UI, pretty colors. You need to know how to use colors. Very important. We're getting there very soon. And I'll just show you how to use, what not to do, and all of that. So, yeah. So helpful links also for colors. We have contrast, we have colorblind, and we have stack. Contrast, I'll also show you how that works on this call. Stack may not, because that is a paid tool, but I think they give you like 7 days trial. Colorblind is also a free tool. You can say it in Figma community or Figma plugin. Just download it and then use. Very pretty like easy tools to work with. So my approach to designing with the right colors. So I want to just, very pay attention to this particular stage, right? The first one says, select a maximum of 3 color system. So for me, that's what I do. But if it doesn't require to use up to 3, I just use 1, I just use 2. But 1, if I'm using 1, it means that I'm either using, a lighter shade of that existing color as either the background to just give it this, perfect contrast for the design. And then I use pastel colors a lot, so when there's a solid color, there's a solid red. Red is, like red is very bright, but you want to also consider using the lighter shade of red, right? And there are plugins to do that, right? So you can pick solid color and just use one of these plugins, this Figma, I think we're getting there, hue and saturation, and then you just get, is it hue? Oh, I can't remember, but I'll try and source for that plugin. You can use it to get different ranges of that color, and then it just works well for you. And then, now this third one is very important. It says, still like an artist. But if you can see the lighter shade here, it says, not a thief. Now, that's what I see in most designers these days, right? Because what they do is like, they steal from a specific design. No, that's not what you should do. Steal is a very legitimate word, just that I can be faced with certain litigation if I use steal, but you get the idea. So steal like an artist, because what an artist does is, or do basically, is they see different inspiration. They absorb inspirations from different places and they create the reality out of it. So that's the way you should also design. When you are looking for design inspiration, source for inspirations everywhere. It's very important. Everywhere you get ideas from. You don't just get ideas from a specific and just dump it and say, oh, this design is nice. No, it may not be. It may be a very ugly approach to designing that solution. So what you want to do is absorb from different places, take colors from here, take text from here, take this pastel from here, take this idea from here, and then when you bring it together, it becomes original. But usually, like in reality, there is simply no originality in design. And it's the truth. Even when you see a design that is so beautiful, and then you just like, oh, this person is an amazing designer. No, maybe amazing is not the word. Maybe this person had spent years doing this, and most of the decisions they make in designing now becomes default, right? But that idea was generated from somewhere. That thought process was learned from somewhere. And that's like the same approach you should use in designing. We're almost wrapping up. So, and then the last one says, take ideas from here. So take ideas here, which is basically like those list of websites that I listed in the earlier, slides. And ensure you navigate between the same niche and category. So now, so I don't want to take this with a pinch of salt, right? So when designing for a fintech brand, for example, you can actually take inspirations from anywhere. It can be from an athletic website, for example. It might be from Nike website, but you're designing for a fintech. What you might be taking from Nike website might just be the, sharp edge, what's it called, buttons, or maybe you just love how, certain texts are aligned, or maybe you just like the layout, so you're taking ideas from different industries. But usually when you know that you are not so good at making such research, what you want to do is keep your search within a specific niche and category. If it's fintech, stick within the fintech category. And I think Nicely Done does this perfectly. So if you go to Nicely Done, so let me just click, explore, browse application, for example. And when you go to browse application, you just come to the search, or you can just scroll, right? So if you are in the industry of say for example, advertising. So it means that your search is going to be within advertising. You know, so if you are in the analytics space, it means that your search should be within the analytics space so that you can see common patterns that are similar in that industry. Hence, it really, really helps. Trust me, it helps. And I think Mobins also does this. So you should also take note of that. And then, so let me just take this out and let me show you what some of the approaches that can help in designing better UIs. So Excel class, and then we have demo. So please confirm you can see this this screen. Confirm you can see the screen before I continue. Where's my screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
All right, amazing. All right, so what we have here basically is, an extensive design from Pexels, right? So, and I want to show you like some of these things that you don't notice in design, and they really help your design. They really help elevate your design. So this is number one, right? But let me take you to the first one. The first one simply is a background, a white background, the same text, UI UX as a different color. And then we have, equipping, we have buttons, we have this handsome dude, and there's this beautiful lady. And then we have like the header, right? Super cool. But if you switch to this design, there's a slight difference. And the slight difference is now there's an elevation when it comes to the background, right? There's a contrast when it comes to the background. This is a white background, and this is a derivative of this color, which is the purple, the dark purple. But we are using that color as the background tone. So it looks like a shade, but a very lighter shade of the primary color. And what is the difference between between this and this? Now, when designing interfaces, ensure that you are paying attention to your use of colors. Now, because you go to Dribble, and Dribble designs used this, nice, component, and then you just used it, you apply the shadow, because this is how people steal designs. They just take this, apply the shadows, they take these guys, and they just apply it, whichever way it is designed on Dribble, and they see, but they don't pay attention to some of these things that set the tone for your design. That background sets the tone for your design. So when you see this now, you understand that there's a perfect contrast between your button and your background. But when you come here, the only contrast between your button and your background is the outline of the button. So these are the common, simple things that change the experience of your design. Either you're working with a dark background, okay, dark background usually doesn't require, much of this work. But when you're working with lighter shades, lighter backgrounds, always ensure that you play with the background, and the background can be a derivative of your primary color, right? It can be the lighter shade of your primary color, and just use it on the background. And you see that what it does is it harmonizes the experience of your landing page, right? What that does is it takes that interface and says, oh, okay, so my background is a family of my components. But when you come here, that's not the case, right? Because the background may work, but it is not saying I am the family with the components. I don't know if that changes this, like the experience for you. So that's simply what it tells you, right? And then if you look at the decisions for my colors, you see that I have a background that says, now this is where the 30-60 and all of those things. So take it with a pinch of salt. When you see 30-60-10, don't just pick 30-60-10 and start designing, because all designs are not following that approach. For some design, the background shade is taking 5%, right? And the primary objective on the design is the primary color, right? So now you see the primary color takes the bait. This text, the primary color, this button, this text are also the primary colors, and this button is also the primary colors. And that way we are using 65% of the primary color. And then we now have alternative colors. So don't box yourself. When you do that, then you will not design in your best form and character. So then you are coming to alternative colors. Those ones are taking 10-10, right? And you know why they're taking 10-10? Because though they may be very vibrant, but they are not the primary information on the screen. I don't know if you understand. So that's what it means, right? So we're using this guy, and then we're using like a button that is in consonance with it. And then we're using this lady, and then a button that is in consonance with it. So let's now do something here. This is where the contrast effect comes in. So when I go to a component library, and I run contrast, for example. Now I want you to see something. What does it say here? It says fill, like normal text, fill, large text, graphics. But when I click the text within, what does it say? Normal text is AA, but if I had maybe increased the size of the text, it would have said AA as well. But larger text is telling me that if I had used a larger text, I have what's it called, the possibility of getting a complete AA. But everything is saying here means that my contrast ratio is within 4.7, which works totally. But it should not go below 4. Anything below 4 is going to just say fail, 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 fail. And you don't want to get a fail design, because when this goes through their split check, then you have failed the test. But when you come here, for example, and then we come, let's do Oyewole. Let's see what Oyewole gives us. Now you see, Oyewole is giving us 3.73 ratio 1. Now, what would I have done to improve this experience, or sorry, improve my contrast ratio rather? What I would just do is maybe come to my color and maybe just increase this a bit. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But let me come back here and go to my contrast, Command P and contrast. Now, what do we have? We have 4.9. Why do you think that works? Because the contrast on the background has been improved. One way or the other, we improved the experience of the background so that the text can properly be visible. And these are things that changes the, your class as a designer. You imagine you are designing something, you are pitching to your stakeholder, and then you're telling them, like you've done this, you've done your research, that this color actually works, and you've also introduced certain colors that also, elevates the experience of the for the user and all of that. You are speaking your shit. Apologies for the use of shit, but you're speaking your stuff. And then in doing that, you're setting a disparity between good and bad, right? Because then people now see you as somebody who knows his stuff. But accessibility is not something we talk about often, especially in our own ecosystem. But it's something that should be thought properly well. Do you get what I mean? So all of these things are just simple things that just changes the experience for you. Number one I've said is don't box yourself to 60, 30, 10. Don't do that, right? So know the primary state of your colors, and then extend the colors to other alternative colors, and then distribute the percentage that way, right? For some case, right, these colors may not be included. Maybe these two colors are not included. And then this is just, the secondary or the alternative color. Then in this case, when this takes 10, this is 5 rather, and this one says 70, then you can then give this 30, for example, right? So it means that the two boxes here, or maybe just these guys take this color, and then these two guys also take this color. But in that case, I think it's going to be dangerous because you'll be having too much of, the alternative color. But then you know the trick already. Know when to break the box, and know when not to break the box, right? So, I mean, I just hope this is helpful, right? In choosing the right decisions when it comes to, colors. Like I said, it's a very straightforward approach. This is what I do all the time. When I'm looking for ideas, I simply say, okay, I'm developing for an educational brand. What do I do? I just can't. I mean, that's why I paid for it, right? I just go to Nicely Done and say, oh, nicely done. Yeah, I am today. I want to develop a design for maybe a messaging app. I go to Discord. And Discord may just be giving you, this screenshot may be giving you, approach to designing better UX. But what you're actually looking for is how certain colors are used, right? They used background, and then this background says blue. But you're not just using blue, because then it looks so ugly and, it doesn't attract anyone. But then you now start playing with patterns on the background. Those patterns also have their colors, right? It might be the lighter shade of the background color, or maybe a bit of contrast from the background color. And then you see illustrations and all of that. And then somebody will tell you, oh, is this illustration not taking more attention than the button? No. What it's doing is simply elevating the experience of the user, because we have limited the scope. All we want them to do is simply download for Mac, which is the white, and then open Discord in your browser, which is a secondary action, if you ask me, right? So as simple as that. Know when to break the box. Don't say because this thing is looking too busy. No. Know when to break the box, and know when not to break the box. And I hope this has been helpful. Please, if you have any questions, anything at all, you can start dropping them. This is almost time. Yeah. I think that's it. That's it pretty much. Any question, thoughts, ideas? This is the time. Thank you for having me.
Okay. You said, okay, I just want to, before I go further to thank you, I want to be sure. You said people call you ABI.
ABY, Abby, just Abby.
Okay. ABY, Abby. Okay, so I want to use Abby. Okay, so thank you so much. Okay. So thank you so much, Abby, for this section. Like, thank you first of all for coming to talk to us at Texels, for honoring our invitation. Abby, we are so grateful. Thank you for the way you dissected this whole color thing, because many people had issues with it. Was when I went through the registration form, I just saw lots of questions that people had to ask. And the way you explained the Abby, honestly speaking, you explained it in a very simple and easy term. So I just want to thank you so much. Your section was fantastic. And we are so
thank you.
Happy to have you here, Abby. Yeah.
Thank
so
you for
please
having me.
let us celebrate Abby in a I'm so glad to have you here. So let's drop out our emojis. Let's celebrate Abby first before we ask questions. Okay. I can see you dropping your emojis. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for dropping your emojis. Okay, so first of all, before we ask questions, I wrote down some questions that people had from the registration form. So I would ask that first before others ask the questions. So just before I'm done, you can just start dropping it. And also, Abby, please would appreciate it if you can drop the link to your Twitter profile and your LinkedIn profile, so we can follow you from there. You get
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you. So I'll start with the first question. This question is asked by Uchechi Uche. Okay, thank you so much. So this question is asked by Uchechi Uche. I don't know if Uchechi is here.
I'm here.
She's how can we test colors for design? How do we tell that our choosing colors are appropriate? So Abby would appreciate if you can answer that.
All right, sure. That's a very interesting color. How do we test that colors are, the right colors? Who says the color is not even right, if you ask me? But I'd already mentioned earlier on before now that in choosing colors, there is really no right or wrong, but there is a set rule to follow. There's a base rule to follow. And like I said, right, so if, for example, you are designing the next Twitter, so what would you consider? Do you go to Twitter and say because they used maybe blue as the button, or blue that identifies as the bird icon? Do you want to use blue? Do you really want to use blue? There are other messaging, there are other social apps that don't even use blue. When you go to Instagram, you see them using this blend of gradients and all of that. And then when you go to LinkedIn, you see them using this ugly blue that gives off this old man vibe. No offense to aged people, but then you get the style, right? So there is really no right or wrong, but there is the base rule, and the base rule is saying when you're designing for a particular brand, know why certain colors are important. And I would really advise you to also really learn about color psychology. It's very basic, trust me. It's a very basic what's it called, research that you can just do, and then just say, okay, so why are certain colors used? Why do this color take lead over this color? And then what? So if I now trace it back to your question that says, how do you know that these colors are the right colors to use? There is no right or wrong. Design, but ensure that you are designing for a specific audience that the color appeals to. And then this can be done by doing basic, like some UX, maybe basic UX research. And that can even be done by you. Okay, you say, oh, there is a product. This is the product A or B, if you don't want to even go into details about the product. And then there is the certain colors that we want to use for the primary colors. So between these four colors, which do you think appeals to you? Because you are sending it to that target audience. And then you see that from the feedback, people are going to be very biased because they now use colors that they like, not colors that they think works. Do you get what I'm saying? So, like I said, there's the base rule, and the base rule is know why you use certain colors, right? Why do you use blue? Because blue appeals to finance, and it also automatically dispenses security and all of these things, right? So if you're designing for a store, a baby store, a kid store, for example, then you're using pop colors. You're using yellow, lighter shade of yellow, lighter shade of blue, lighter shade of orange, lighter shade, lighter shade, and then it appeals to that audience. So there's no right or wrong. Like I said, and I'm going to say it again, don't box yourself. Just ensure that you follow the base rule, which is why you're using that color, and then just go for it. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm so sorry. I don't know if I'm taking time, but I just want to understand something. So now say I'm not yet in the working space. I'm not yet working. I'm still learning with Pexels. Now say I have a design. I mean, I'm trying to build a portfolio and I want to choose colors. We always hear stuff like your recruiter will not like the color, your recruiter will have issues with the color, and all this plenty grammar. Now that was why I asked the question I asked. How do you just mentioned, I mean, a certain color will suit this certain audience. It means there's actually a right and a wrong color to use. I mean, I don't know whether the word is not correct, but it means I mean some colors don't work sometimes. So how can you of your own volition, you see something, you decide this color is perfect, yes, or this color will not work? That is my question.
So now I get the context of your question, right? Because this is from the basis of you're just learning and then you're just trying to test the waters and see how things actually works, right? That's smart. So now, like I said, designers should learn advocacy alongside their skills, right? So you are just learning for Pixel, which is awesome, right? But in doing this, also learn advocacy. Advocacy in the sense that you are helping the stakeholder, you are helping a company, and you're helping the users, right? Because you know your shit, you know your skill. So what you should do is, like I'd mentioned, which is when I say there is no right or wrong, what I actually meant was when you use blue, somebody that appeals to a fintech brand, somebody else can use purple that still appeals to a fintech brand. So that's where I meant, that's in that context, that's what I meant by right or wrong. Because those two colors now appeals to the same audience, But now, how do you now pitch? So how do you ensure that your stakeholder likes it? Because now you need to understand the intricacies of those colors in the first place. So that when you are pitching to your advocating for certain, idea you've come up with, maybe color in context, they understand why you have chosen that color. And you're also helping them understand why, if that color, if they are going outside the space of that color, there have to be certain considerations. Do we want to use, colors like purple because it still appeals to that same audience? But if they are choosing red doesn't work because you know it, and because you've done your research enough to know that red doesn't work for a fintech brand. I don't know if you understand where I'm driving at, right? So the first rule is to understand those colors, and I'm going to say that again and again, right? And then the second is understand advocacy. Advocacy in the sense that when you are pitching your ideas, your stakeholders should not hijack that conversation, right? Because the first step for you is to ensure that they understand your rationale behind the color choice that you've made. And if they don't buy it, let them give you a suggestion. Try and understand those layouts of suggestions they've made, and then you can always compromise in the sense that you can further do your extensive research and say, oh, maybe yellow isn't that bad, maybe we can now use a different shade of yellow. I don't know if you understand what I mean rather. So I think this is going to be very helpful for you. Learn advocacy, learn the intricacies of colors, and learn how to pitch your ideas properly. Anybody will buy into that idea, trust me.
Okay, thank you so much, Abby, for answering Uchechi's question. Uchechi, I hope that was clear enough for you.
Yes, that was perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So I just thought of something. I just reason, and there are people, instead of me reading questions from the registration page, let people here ask questions first, and then I can go ahead to do that. So I can see 4 hands raised. I can see Osikalu Emmanuel. Osikalu, I don't know if you are saluting us or if you have, because I've been seeing your hands raised since. Do you have any question? Emmanuel, do you have any question?
Oh,
are you here?
sorry, Sherry. I'm here. I forgot it's been raised up. Sorry. Let me turn it
Okay.
down.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
got everything since we've been on the line. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much, Mr. Abby. That's
You're
fine.
welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
You're
you're
welcome.
welcome. So, okay, the next person is David Ebuka. I can see your hands raised, David. Do you have any question?
No, I don't have voice. A mistake.
Okay, okay, I can see Obasi Emmanuel. Your hands are raised. Do you have any question, Emmanuel?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Okay, okay,
Yep.
please ask.
So good evening, everyone, and Mr. Abbey, thank you very much for the amazing value you just shared right now. Okay, I have a question. The 60-30 rule, after the application, how do we calculate if we actually follow the rule correctly? Sometimes we just go with the okay, I'm using 60 for this particular color, which is basically, let's say, my major color or the brand color, and then there's 30, and then there's 10% for, let's say, the minimal color. How do you know that, okay, I correctly follow this rule after the old design?
Yeah, that's a very smart question, because I'm going to show you, tell you that there's a lot of there's a lot of background lies, right? When it comes to, because when I showed you that, it gave you this impression that I was actually following a set rule. In reality, I am not, right? Because I designed and then now splitted the decisions that I've made, right? I said, oh yeah, because my primary color is the primary, then I use 60% for that, and then I splitted the rest, and I say, oh, so this alternative color makes sense, but I'm not using much of it, then I'll give that 10. So there is no equation, quadratic equation for choosing 60, 30, 10. Because in most cases, it is not 60. In most cases, it might be 40, right? And there are cases where you are using the same colors, and then you're using them consistently on the design. In that case, do you say that you use 100% of the primary color? So there is no one size fits all. I'm going to say that again. So when you're choosing colors, throw that rule somewhere first, because that's going to box you totally, and you don't want that to happen, right? So throw that color somewhere, throw that rule rather, and then keep designing from the consistent research you've done, right? Because research has showed you oh, this design works, this design decision is perfect. Why did they use this background? When you bring all those design decisions together, create your design. When you are done, now take out the rule from what you've designed, but don't let the rule break you. You break the rule, and then you set your own rule. I don't know if that makes sense to you. So, but usually the primary color is always the highest, right? Because that is the major take of the brand or the brand messaging. They want the primary color to pop. And I think everybody will agree with that. I don't know if I answered that question. Right.
Yeah, you did. Thank you very much. Okay, I have one more question, please.
Okay, go ahead.
For the contrast ratio, most times when we intentionally design and then check through for website, it's always come true. You see your contrast ratio having 4.1, 4.9, sometimes 5 points. But for mobile designs, most times, though for me, after designing, I check, it's always 3.9, 3.8, 3.7, and I still tweak, and it's always the peak I've gotten so far is 3.9. So I don't know if there's something I'm not doing correctly, because
okay,
at first when I was getting the 4.0, I was using the whole FFFFF background, which from research and learning art is bad. So I took to using a blend of that particular shade. And since then, I've been getting the highest I've been getting is 3.9. So I don't know how to change that.
Okay. Yeah, so take accessibility with a pinch of salt. And I like to say that. Why? Because now if I do a design, I do a button for a mobile app, and then I give it to everyone on this call, right? Everybody has a very solid site, and then they can tell that this is a button, they can click it and it works. If you try this with 10 users and they tell you it works, bro, it works. But when you go to accessibility, and when you will now get into accessibility, that's where it gets very tricky, because accessibility now is not tested with only with the principle of color alone. There are other things that they check for accessibility. They check for your type, how legible your type is, your kerning for the type, They're looking at images, how it contrasts with the backgrounds and all of that. So don't overthink it. When your contrast ratio is giving you 3.9, that's close to 4. So you're actually like doing well, because when they do the final accessibility test, when there is a percentage that you get to, so when you are within 60, your design, your experience is still very solid, right? When you get to maybe 55, 57, 6, your experience is still very solid, right? It meets accessibility standard. But if it's below 50 and it's going towards 30, 20, then there's a problem. So take it with a pinch of salt. 3.9 is still great. Do you get? Because that's not the only thing they're checking for. They're checking for other things on your design. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.